Hi, my name is Hope, and I'm the director of the CWU Museum of Culture and Environment. And I'm here with Kate, who is with the CWU Community Garden. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kate, and really glad that you agreed to do this.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to talk with you about sustainability today.
Awesome. So my first question is, can you talk a little bit about the sustainability work that you and that the community garden do on campus? Also about reaching out into the community as well.
Definitely. So I am the farm and sustainability manager in auxiliary enterprises here at CWU. So I primarily operate the Wildcat Neighborhood Farm, and which includes the community garden, and work with my colleagues in auxiliary enterprises on sustainability efforts and initiatives within our area. I also work with the Presidents United to Solve Hunger group on food security initiatives. So the Wildcat Farm grows food for the campus community, mainly through dining services, but we try and get our produce to folks in other ways through push, being one. And the community garden at the farm is a space for people to grow food for themselves or their direct communities, their households, their families, whoever they would like to share that with. And what I really like about having the community garden at the farm is that when we grow for dining or for sort of a larger, from a larger scale perspective, our focus shifts to, how much are we producing and how far will that go, which we still try and do from a lens that is considering more than just numbers and quantity outputs. But at the community garden, the focus is on sort of like direct community and like personal resilience, which I think is really important in this conversation. I think kind of especially within the context of everything we've been experiencing with COVID, as far as like what like skills we have to take care of ourselves and our communities in times of hardship. And not only like thinking about like, oh, if I grow food for myself, I can control what kinds of products I use to do that, or like where my seeds come from, or what I'm doing in the process of that growth, but also the knowledge sharing within that. So like if you are like using methods that have been passed down to you through your culture or from your elders, and like the opportunity to share that with your neighbors and friends if you so wish, I think is like the wonderful thing about community gardens in general, and something that I try to facilitate at Central's community garden. Yeah. And I guess kind of within that, that's when I started reaching out to some of our community partners at the food banks. So at Apoyo Food Bank and at Fish Food Bank, where we host garden plots for them, where, we take that food directly to their organizations, which I guess from an organizational perspective is easy for us, but also provides the opportunity for their organization to come out and participate in the growing and the stewardship of those plots. and puts some of the choice of what to grow with their organization. So we're growing things that they want to eat, that their clients want to eat, as opposed to like, here's 100 pounds of radishes that we have or something like that.
Don't knock radishes though, they're pretty tasty.
I love a good radish, but unfortunately they don't have the nutritional complexity to sustain us long term.
Well, it sounds like, you know, you're really working on cultural sustainability, the recovery of knowledge and its perpetuation, as well as social sustainability, in addition to being able to produce foods in ways that are less impactful in terms of carbon footprint, or, you know, the extent to which we use maybe harmful products and things in the process of gardening at a massive scale. So that sounds like some really intense sustainability going on at the Wildcat Farm.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability is so much. I mean, it's the concept is so broad. It is like all parts of our lives, and so like within that, we have to consider, especially I think in conversations around food, where like food is so central to our lives and our cultures and like social structures, that we have to talk about all components of it when we're doing this work. Yeah. So I think it, you know, like it's the cool parts of the farm and the garden, I think, come into when we do start getting into those like deeper level conversations and ideas of what we're doing and what its benefit is. Because it's certainly beneficial to grow food in a less impactful way. But when we really get into it, there's a lot more at that deeper level that is cool about the work that we do.
Yeah.
To put it simply, I guess.
So I know that you probably encounter people asking for advice all the time. I imagine, especially from novice gardeners. But I guess I'll ask this in a broader way: if you had any bit of advice to give people who want to make a change and want to really imagine a more sustainable future for themselves, what would that advice be?
I think, gosh, my brain is going to all of these like really obscure places. I think in the in the way that like no one, you know, person has the same lived experience. There's no like one way of like making of bringing more like sort of focus on sustainability into your life. So if growing food is a way that like makes sense for you to try and, you know, be more, you know, quote unquote sustainable, that is really great. And I think the advice I often give to people is plants really want to grow. So if you just sort of try and give them those like base level things they need, they'll do their thing. And it's just something to remember, I guess, because I find myself getting nervous about whether I'm doing it right, but they have that knowledge. But then I think in other ways, you know, if that doesn't make sense for you to grow your own food, like what other ways can you bring sustainability into your life? And it's hard to, I guess, for me to give advice on that because you know, you never know. But I mean, there's always trying to shop at the farmers market, which is they our farmers market has really cool program called Market Match, where you can use your state or federal food benefits. You can use your EBT benefits, and they match the dollars that you use at market. So you are, putting in your, let's say you are like going to spend $15 at market, they give you a voucher so that you have more than that to spend. I think that it's a one-to-one match.
That's cool.
Yeah, which is really great. And if that also like doesn't make sense for you to shop at the farmers market, there, I mean, maybe it's just sort of like rethinking how, just like questioning like what the sort of like proposed like normal sort of like activities are, and like thinking, oh well, like what does this go back to, like what's like underneath this, like if it doesn't, because it's like really hard to be a person, it's really hard to be a human being. And so like yeah, and so even if it's just sort of like, oh, why is conventional agriculture like so normalized, like why does it look like this here, and like getting sort of like into thinking that, and I feel like that's a good first step always.
Yeah,
that's so broad and vague, and I am sorry it's not more like, oh well,
I think that the advice, all of that's really helpful, but I love the advice of that plants want to grow.
Yeah.
So it makes
they
it
really
so
do.
that growing things is not this exclusive, thing for only a few people who have a quote green thumb, but it's something that we could all join in on if you want to, if that's your thing.
If you give them water, if you give them sun, if you give them soil, and depending on what your soil looks like, a little boost with some sort of organic fertilizer, they really want to make that work for them. So
yeah.
So
I'm going to change this next question a little bit, because I've heard you talk before on this. But what has growing food done for you?
I mean, I think for me, I started farming and, learning more about agriculture and growing food when I was in my undergrad. And at that time, starting to like rethink the way that I like understood our food system and learning more about it, and starting to like work with soil and work with plants and build relationships with other people around those things. It changed the way that I see community and the way that I see myself as like a person in like life. And for me, growing food or working in agriculture or in like food access in this area is like the best way that I think I can support my community and show up for my community and for people. And like in the terms of my relationship with food, starting to work in farming really liberated me from a lot of harmful like structures around food and diet culture and body and all of these things, and made me see my body in a different way as like a something that like has like a lot of power and can like do all of these cool things, like carry a heavy load of like, you know, carrots to share with people, with other humans, and provide nutrition to people, and sustenance. And yeah, and I think that sort of like within that, I mean, you know, I don't know, I can't think of any cliche, but like it opens up like so much more possibility. And for me personally, at the time it coincided with a lot of things and opened up my like relationship to my gender, and like what is my gender, and like to sort of like the way that I get to choose how I live in this world. And that's, you know, why I say like food is the center of so much, and like why I choose to do this as like, and say that it's the best way for me to connect to community, because it is related to like so many different pieces of our lived experiences. So just as a personal um, experience, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like agency is the word that comes to mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And truly, I mean, that is like the resiliency that I feel comes when you start when you practice gardening, and that is that you have like choice, and you have agency over what you are over what you're eating, and the way that it's grown, and what it is, and how you eat it, and all of those things. So yeah.
Yeah. Even if you want to have a garden filled with radishes.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. I feel I came into this with an anti-radish sort of perspective, and that's not the case. I love radishes.
I do too. I do too. I actually have quite a number of radishes usually in my garden. So
Yeah.
well, thank you so much, Kate. This is really enlightening, and it really opens up and broadens our understanding of sustainability, and shows us how connected not just we are with other people, but also with the plants that we tend and the earth that's underneath them and us. So thank you.
No, thank you.